Imagine moving into your new home, boxes still sealed, keys still warm in your hand, when someone bangs on your door and screams that you don't belong there. Not because you broke in, but because you're black. No questions, just rage, and a phone call to 911 meant to weaponize the police against an innocent family. But what this racist neighbor didn't know was that the black woman she was screaming at wasn't just a homeowner. And this time, the badge wasn't on the side of hate. The sun was barely up when the moving truck rumbled to a stop in front of the house. Boxes stacked high, tape still fresh, a new beginning sitting quietly at the end of a suburban cul-de-sac. It was supposed to be a good day, a proud day. A black family finally stepping into a home they worked hard to earn, paid in full, deed in their name, land fully theirs. Derek carried the first box inside, brushing past the doorway with a tired smile. "Kitchen stuff," he called out. Their daughter was still asleep in the car, head against the window, clutching her stuffed cat. His wife, Rena, stood in the living room, hands on her hips, already mentally arranging furniture. They weren't even halfway through unloading, and it still felt unreal. Fresh walls, clean floors, a quiet street, no HOA, no one to police the color of their shutters, just peace. Or so they thought. The first knock wasn't a knock. It was a slam, then another, thud, thud, thud. Derek froze mid-step. Rena turned slowly. Someone was pounding on the door like they were trying to break it down. He opened the door halfway and was met with pure fury. A white woman in a tight pastel sweater stood on their porch, face red, jaw clenched, eyes wild. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't ask who they were. She didn't even breathe before she screamed. "You don't live here." Derek blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she snapped, stepping closer. "This house isn't yours. People like you don't own property in this neighborhood." Rena appeared in the doorway then, silent, watching. Lorraine's eyes flicked over her and narrowed into something sharper, meaner. "Don't play dumb. You don't belong here. I know who's supposed to live in this house, and it's not." She waved her hand at them like wiping dust. "Your kind." Derek took a slow breath. "We bought this home." "Liar," she barked. "You broke in, and I'm calling the police." She didn't wait. She already had her phone in hand. "Yes, 911? There's a black family trespassing in a home they don't own. Yes, right now, send someone fast." Have you ever had someone call the police on you? Just because of the color of your skin? What would you do if a stranger stood on your porch and said you can't live in your own home because you're black? Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you believe people should be judged by their character, not their color, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because standing up to prejudice starts with telling these stories. Rena's jaw tightened. Derek said nothing, but his eyes were burning. Lorraine smirked like justice was hers. Sirens began to rise in the distance. She folded her arms, satisfied. "You're about to find out how things work around here." The sirens grew louder, sweeping through the quiet neighborhood like an alarm that didn't belong. Derek stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw set. Rena didn't move. She just watched Lorraine, watched the way she stood tall, chin high, believing she had already won. The police cruiser turned into the cul-de-sac, tires whispering against the pavement, lights flashing silently. Lorraine lit up like a spotlight had been aimed at her. She hurried forward, waving both hands over her head as if she were flagging down a rescue helicopter. "Officer! Officer! Over here! Arrest them immediately!" The cop stepped out, adjusting his belt, scanning the scene. His eyes landed first on Derek, then Rena, then the half-unpacked moving truck. Derek opened his mouth to speak, but Lorraine shoved herself in front of him. "They broke in!" she shouted. "They don't live here. They don't belong here, and they're refusing to leave." The officer lifted a hand. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." She ignored him. "You don't understand. This neighborhood has standards. We don't let just anyone move in. I know the real owners. And those people," she jabbed her finger toward the porch, "are criminals." That's when Rena stepped forward. Not fast, not threatening, just calm, controlled. The officer saw her, and his entire posture changed. His shoulders squared, his chin lifted, his eyes widened. Just a fraction. Then, with sudden formality, he straightened his stance. "Chief." Lorraine's mouth hung open. "What did you just call her?" The officer swallowed, suddenly aware of the silence around him. Chief of police, he said quietly, almost like an apology. Derek said nothing. Rena said nothing. But Lorraine exploded. No, no, I don't care what she says she is. Arrest them. Do your job. This is my neighborhood. We don't want them here. The officer turned fully to face her now. Ma'am, stand down. Lorraine's voice cracked. They're lying. They forged documents. They probably broke in through the back. Just look at them. His jaw tightened. They just moved in, ma'am. They own this house, and the woman you're screaming at, she's my commanding officer. Lorraine froze. Color drained from her face. That doesn't change anything, she whispered. They still don't belong here. The officer's voice turned cold. You know what does belong here? Laws and consequences. He tapped his radio. Dispatch, I need an additional unit for a false report at this location. Lorraine choked. Backup? For ME? Lorraine's face twisted. Disbelief, anger, panic, all tangled into one unraveling expression. You can't do this. I'm protecting the neighborhood. I have every right to call the police if something looks suspicious. Rena finally spoke. Calm, steady, voice like iron wrapped in velvet. What looked suspicious exactly? Lorraine blinked rapidly. You moving in. People like you. You don't. She caught herself too late. Rena's eyes didn't flicker. You mean black. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Exposed. Lorraine sneered, jabbing her finger toward Rena. I don't care who she is. People like that don't bell. The officer snapped. Ma'am, you know what? That's enough. You're under arrest. Lorraine froze. What? For what? He stepped forward, already pulling out cuffs, for filing a false 911 report, harassment, and targeted racial intimidation. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Her mouth fell open, but no words came. He kept going, firm, absolute, reading her every word of her rights as her face collapsed. You can't do this, she stammered. I was trying to protect the neighborhood. He didn't slow down, didn't argue, didn't explain. You weaponized 911 because a black family moved in. That ends today. He turned her around, hands behind her back, the cuffs clicked shut. Lorraine twisted, still trying to cling to authority that never existed. I'm on the HOA board. I run this street. You can't just... There is no HOA jurisdiction here, the officer said flatly. And even if there were, it doesn't give you the right to commit a crime. Two neighbors stepped outside, phone cameras already recording. Lorraine saw them and panic finally hit. Stop filming. I'm not a criminal. I'm the victim here. Rena stepped forward, calm, unshaken, voice steady. No, you're exactly what you say you hate, someone breaking the law. Lorraine shook her head violently. You don't belong here. You people. The officer didn't let her finish. Ma'am, I strongly suggest silence. You're digging deeper. You didn't just call the police. You lied. You targeted. You harassed. And you're not going to do it again. He guided her toward the cruiser, her steps uneven, her voice cracking into disbelief. You're ruining my life. Rena watched her, unreadable. You did that yourself. The officer opened the back door, lowered her in, and shut it firmly. Lorraine's face pressed against the glass, still shaking her head, still mouthing words no one cared to hear. Derek finally spoke, voice low, almost stunned. First day in the house. Rena exhaled, not defeated, not angry, just done. I've dealt with war zones that were calmer. The officer approached them again, this time with respect and certainty in every step. Chief, we'll file the full report and send everything to your office. She nodded once. Not a trace of triumph, just control. Make sure every charge sticks. Yes, ma'am. Lights flashed. Cameras rolled. Neighbors whispered. And the woman who tried to run the block from a place of hate was driven away, exposed, powerless, and officially under arrest. The cruiser turned at the end of the street, Lorraine still shouting from behind the glass, but her voice was nothing now. Just noise fading into distance. The flashing lights washed over quiet lawns, over staring neighbors, over a neighborhood suddenly forced to face itself. Then, silence. Not awkward, not tense, just real. Derek took in the street. The houses, the moving trucks still half full. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Our first morning here, he said quietly. We haven't even unpacked a toaster. Rena scanned the street like she was still on duty, measuring, assessing, protecting. But when she turned back to him, her gaze softened. She thought she could decide who belongs. Derek looked at her, slow and tired, but steadier now. She was wrong. If you believe no one has the right to tell you where you can or can't belong, smash that like button, subscribe to Story Arc,